to come, including our third panel, which is talking about the foundation of the forest. And Lauren Grand is going to be our moderator. And Lauren's an assistant professor of practice at Lane County Extension agent for OSU, Forestry and Natural Resource Extension. And Lauren has a background in research, including amphibian conservation management. And thanks to Lauren for helping to host this. And we will, just to note, Nalini's talk at lunchtime is going to be filmed. So you'll notice some extra cameras coming into the room. And hopefully you've had a chance to agree to that. If they do any specific interviews, they'll ask also for your permission, just let people know. So thanks, panelists, for joining us. And Lauren, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Julie. So I'm so excited to be sitting with these wonderful women up here to be able to talk about their jobs and the things that they do within the forest industry that are at the very beginning of forest management. And we're going to start off by introducing ourselves and talking a little bit about what we do and what we think the greatest accomplishments are in our work that define our success. So I'll let the women speak and then I'll follow them.
Ooh, am I going to get to start? Okay. My name is Shavonne Sargent, and I am the founder and principal of SilvaSaunterra LLC. I am a consulting forester working out of the Albany area, and previously had a career as a area forester with Weyerhaeuser company, and also worked at their corporate headquarters. But originally I'm from the Northeast, and so my training is all back there, and it was there that I actually was first a consulting forester through the generosity of a woman who was closing up her business. I came out of grad school and she said, I have all these clients and you seem like you'll be a good fit. So I became a consulting forester right out of grad school, which is, I think, fairly uncommon. Moved west for with my husband for his naval career, and that's where I got involved with Weyerhaeuser. I have never interviewed for and gotten a job in my life. All my jobs have come as a result of my networking. And I tell people that all the time. Big plug for professional societies. Society of American Foresters has really served me. I suppose that's kind of one of my greatest accomplishments as a leader is birthing something out of nothing. I have 2 daughters. I have a business. I have grown trees. It's this sort of regenerative act of bringing forth something into the world that didn't exist before. And I think that is my greatest accomplishment. It's maybe like a non-traditional accomplishment, but or a different way of looking at leadership, but it's a sort of self-leadership to bring what you want to see into the world into existence.
Thanks. So my name is Ashley Coble, and I'm a senior scientist with NCASI, and I'm based here in Corvallis, Oregon. I am a PhD level scientist. I have expertise in aquatic ecology and biogeochemistry. So I'm an interdisciplinary scientist, and I work for the forest products industry. We're trying to use research to meet some of their needs. In terms of my background, I have a bachelor's from Mount Holyoke College, which is an all-women's college on the East Coast. I obtained my master's of science in forestry from Northern Arizona University, where I worked primarily in forest soils, terrestrial biogeochemistry, and also hydrology. And then I transitioned into aquatic biogeochemistry, getting my PhD at Michigan Technological University, which is also another big forestry school. And then did a postdoc at the University of New Hampshire, where I had the privilege of working in forested systems, not only in New England, but also in Puerto Rico and also in Siberia. And so I got a really great example of being able to work across different ecosystems. In Siberia, we're focused on understanding the effects of fire on organic matter, whereas in Puerto Rico are at the opposite end of the scale in terms of really low carbon systems. We're talking about what's happening in streams. And all of those collective experiences have led me to getting this position with NCASI, where I get to work in multiple disciplines in terms of understanding how forestry is affecting our streams and our stream ecosystems. In terms of my greatest accomplishment, I'm considered relatively early career for a PhD level scientist. That said, I have 20 years of experience since my bachelor's degree. So I'm very proud of my peer-reviewed publications. I have over 30 peer-reviewed publications so far. And that is necessary for me to do the work that I do and to be recognized and to be asked to collaborate and to speak and to participate in a variety of groups. So I'm very proud of that. The other aspect is, of course, mentoring, which we've heard a lot about today. You know, I don't get a lot of opportunities to hire, but I do often hire seasonal technicians, field technicians, lab technicians throughout my career. And so that's been a wonderful opportunity to bring people in at a very early stage, first years, freshmen, in undergrad, starting with them and then watching them either like what we're doing or not like what we're doing, and then find their career paths from there. And several of those students are now nearly completing their own PhDs or working as environmental engineers in New York City, or pharmacists, or a wide variety of career paths. But it's been very rewarding to spend that time with them out in the woods, in the field, teaching them some of our protocols. And then most importantly, I think, is also teaching them how to use different software and skill sets for data management, which then pay dividends no matter what career they're going into. And so we also have people that have ended up in data science for medical organizations or for Microsoft, just based off working in stream ecology. So it's been really rewarding to make those connections, however brief, and continue that, see the great things they're doing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anya Hall, and I work for Weyerhaeuser as a seed orchard manager. I've been in the role for about 5 years now. And what that means is we culture conifers to produce seed, and then we harvest that seed and grow it for reforestation in Oregon and Washington. It's definitely some of the behind the curtain work that not a lot of people get to either visit in their career or just even know about. We often get folks who come to the nursery and the orchards and are just shocked to learn how many years go into a seedling before it even reaches the forest. So I went to Oregon State. I have a degree in forest management. I graduated in 2016. And before that, I was born and raised in New Jersey. So this was all very foreign to me, coming over to Oregon. I really had no idea what I was getting into. I didn't know what forestry meant, but it sounded really cool. And I have stayed. I never changed my major, never decided to do anything else, and then was able to get the job that I have now through my advisors at OSU. So that was really pivotal in my career. I feel like I haven't accomplished too much in the 5 years that I've been working, but I would say the most satisfying thing that I've done is building connections with colleges, grade schools, and nonprofits to really entice people to come into forestry for things other than just to be a forester or an engineer. Those are great, and we have tons of those opportunities, but there's lots of other paths that you can take. There's regeneration, law, finance, PR. I mean, there's just so many different facets of the forest industry, and I just have really enjoyed being an advocate for that. And so, yeah, I would say that's probably my best accomplishment.
Thank you. As Julie mentioned, my name is Lauren Grand. I'm a OSU Extension Forester. And what I do is I take the wonderful research that they do here at OSU and other universities, and I help disseminate that in a more approachable way for small woodland owners and the general public. And so mostly what I do is put on classes and workshops for general public education, and then also do some projects and case studies of my own to be able to get my feet wet in the research realm and play with slimy creatures, as Julie mentioned, because I like amphibians so much. you know, there's what makes me feel most successful in my work is when I have landowners that I work with come back to me after workshops or after working with me in some way with their excitement and stories about how something I taught them or information I helped them receive helped them in the management of their property or in the achievement of their goals. And that's what makes me feel successful and that I'm doing good work in the work that I wanted to do. I find it so interesting that Anya said that she's from New Jersey and didn't know what forestry was. I have a very similar story. I'm from New York, and I always joke around with people that I didn't know what trees were. So that's so funny that we have that same story. And I went to school at UC Berkeley for environmental science because I didn't know that forestry was a thing until a very good friend of mine got back from forestry camp and said, "You've got to check this out." And I fell in love with forestry ever since. And so I went to the University of Washington to get a degree in forestry and found my way splitting the difference from California, between California and Washington here. And it's been a great opportunity to be able to be involved in the forestry community and continue my education and helping to educate other people. So we've each come prepared with some a little bit about ourselves and what excites us about being women in forestry. So I'll invite the others to share that. Who'd like to go first?
Me again. Yay. I have a presentation. I suppose I have something to say. Oh, look at that. Okay. So really honored to be here today. This series has been really nourishing for me. And so I thank the Starker family and the organizers for letting me be here and have share what I have to say. So I was asked to speak for my experience as a reforestation forester, but I'd actually like to discuss briefly how feminine energy adds value to reforestation and forestry in general. I spent most of my life as a tomboy and feeling like I was best suited suppressing my feminine qualities in order to fit my interests. This wasn't external pressure that I felt. It came from my own inability to see the value of the feminine. Thoroughly immersed in a male-dominated field, I realized eventually that masculine energy, both the positive and the negative sides, also dominates. Not that the positive attributes of masculinity are bad. That's things like achievement, drive, physicality, productivity, focus. Rather, the masculine is unbalanced if not matched with feminine attributes. It took me well into adulthood to recognize these attributes as valuable and deliberately bring them to my work. So my career started in Maine, where the focus was around silvicultural systems that produced advanced regeneration rather than requiring replanting. I can remember thinking during my silviculture class, who plants a tree anymore when they grow all on their own in the woods? Obviously, I was back east, and planting trees was something you would do when the forest was deforested. So I never imagined myself as a forester in charge of getting 750,000 trees in the ground each year. But through a set of circumstances, here I was living the romantic East Coaster notion of moving west to the big frontier. Masculine energy helped me to get work done in a production-focused environment, while feminine energy allowed me to find purpose where my role fit into the bigger picture. The forest as our best renewable resource, trees are truly the answer. My trees were my first children, and I was and still am very proud of them and desire to see their success. I birthed my first daughter in 2015, and the experience put my working forester self into a whole different mindset. I realized that feminine energy was my fuel. So I leaned into it. I added value through mom level coordination skills, my nurturing, the entrusted care of stewardship, the desire to do well, to be a team player, and to see everyone succeed and be celebrated for their contributions. Eventually, the desire for feminine attributes to be more central led me to take a sabbatical and find a new avenue to share them, which led to starting my own business as a consulting forester. The Saunter in SilvaSaunterra is rooted in the feminine attributes I possess, want to see more of in myself, and to share with others. My connectedness with mentors, friends, and colleagues, particularly women, some of whom are here today, was a central source of encouragement and inspiration in this transition. Indeed, it was impossible without them. Now the feminine is not only central to my work, it is the reason people cite for hiring me. Reforestation, or just the future forest, is still at the heart of my work, but I think of it more broadly along with the objectives of my clients. Variable retention systems, gap creation for regeneration, focus on species diversity for resilience, and restoring endangered habitat like oak, and recognizing values beyond timber, like this recent restoration project. And I want to point out that excellent weed control, because you can never take the Weyerhaeuser out of the forester. I've seen women specifically add value when we tap into the feminine, because this is historically underrepresented in our research questions, our silviculture, and our workplaces. Science is revealing that forests are more connected, communicative, interdependent, and complex than we previously thought. This excites me because it creates direct recognition of the value of the feminine. People are beginning to ask more of this creative energy from forest practices and practitioners. And there are lots of us poised to step up and bring that energy to our work. Regenerative, connective, feminine energy is the foundation of a forest, and the attributes of forestry that forestry needs today most. Thank you.
So I wanted to speak a little bit more about sort of what my role is in my position and how that ties into forestry. Since this is a Women in Forestry session, I'm a scientist. I study streams. I'm very interested in freshwater and freshwater resources. So how does that tie in with forestry? Well, forestry has been at the forefront of learning about the negative impacts of its activities on our freshwater resources. And over time, there have been additional regulations put in place to help protect our freshwater systems. And that continues to be a point of conversation today. We heard earlier about the recent private forest accord. And a big part of that, of course, was enhancing protections for freshwater. And so we all understand the importance of that in terms of forest hydrology. There's been decades of research in forest hydrology that have contributed to our wealth of knowledge and continued improvement of forest practices over time. So related to that, there's no shortage of issues when we think about freshwater. And so I run our forest watershed program for the Pacific Northwest. And so that includes the US and Canada. And as you can imagine, that includes a wide range of issues where I need to have some expertise. And so that includes things like water quantity. So how much, is there enough water? Is there too much water? We can think about low flow issues. We can also think about peak flow issues. And of course, the quantity of water then has implications for the solutes that are coming in. So thinking about TMDLs, thinking about nutrient loading or sediment loading. and a wide variety of other issues. Ultimately, we're interested in protecting extreme temperatures. We're interested in protecting our native species, including cold water species within these ecosystems. And that's just a small number of issues, of course, that we deal with in terms of addressing research needs within private forestry. So that said, there's a lot of topics. I am interdisciplinary, but I am not the leading expert on all of those aspects. And so a big part of my job is to collaborate. And I love that I do get to collaborate. I get to reach out to other academics. We work closely with professors at Oregon State University, also the University of Idaho, Colorado State, Utah State. We work with Portland State, a wide range of academic institutions, but also with agencies. So federal agencies and state agencies, when appropriate, we do try to collaborate with some of those projects as well. And so just as an example of a few of the projects that I currently have going on, we're in the midst of a large scale riparian buffer manipulation project that's been ongoing here in Oregon. I'd say we're about halfway through. However, our first batch of sites did succumb to the fires in 2020. So we're sort of replacing some of those sites. And so we now have 30 streams in the Coast Range, specifically where we're doing these buffer manipulations. And this is in collaboration with Oregon State University. This is a project where we're seeking to manipulate light and understand the influence of light on the stream channel and how that's affecting our stream food webs. So we're thinking about bottom-up food web processes and translation all the way up to top predators, while also thinking about the physical and chemical processes as well. So thinking about stream temperature and how that's going to be affected as well. And so that's been a really exciting project to be a part of. We're still in the midst of that, and now there are a bunch of rule changes. So I'm looking forward in the future to adapting our research and thinking critically about how some of those new regulations may then affect other parts of our stream ecosystems. Other examples, I've been involved in a lot of discussions and various groups thinking about hydrological extremes. So thinking about our low flow issues, both in the short term, but also in the long term. And then also thinking in terms of peak flows and potential for really high intensity events. Of course, that's important when we're thinking about these recently burned areas as we think about regenerating the forests, and in the interim, what's the susceptibility to debris flow or landslides or sediment inputs upstream of these drinking water source areas. So, so those are important things that are ongoing. And then related to that, so we try to set up studies that help us address different aspects. And so some of those can focus on temporal variation. And so we have an intensive study where we're looking at stream sediment in these completely burned areas throughout the year and year over year. So we're quantifying sediment concentration. We're also quantifying turbidity. But then we have other places where we have large spatial scale studies. So we're doing less intensive work, but we're trying to cover a broader area. And so that allows us to understand how representative are these places where we're really intensely studying the effects of fire or the effects of forestry. How representative are those of the broader landscape? And so those within those studies, we've also added some biodiversity components. And so this is an example of being able to work with other women in forestry, working with scientists from Weyerhaeuser and also the U.S. Forest Service, and using novel techniques like environmental DNA to then understand total ecosystem diversity within our aquatic system. So that's a really exciting area of research, and that was recently funded by SFI, which is a third-party certification here, and their interest in that is developing their new standards, which relate to not only water quantity, but also climate smart forestry. So that's a nice tie-in with some of that. And then I also just wanted to take a moment and throw a nod to being welcomed by women in forestry to this position. So I started here almost 5 years ago. And when I started, I wasn't well known here specifically, and I was given an opportunity by other women to participate as an organizer for a low flow symposium that was held at the U.S. Forest Service. And so I'm very grateful for different collaborators with the U.S. Forest Service and Weyerhaeuser for inviting me to co-lead that symposium. Ultimately, that was well attended. It included multiple landowners, many different agencies from multiple states. It included members of the public who are very interested in this issue, and also, of course, the academic community as well. And ultimately, I was able to lead a peer-reviewed manuscript with many of the speakers from that symposium that was later published right at the beginning of the pandemic. And that's been just a really wonderful resource in being able to discuss this issue, but also was a great opportunity to get to know many of these other important collaborators who are also thinking about slightly different aspects of the low flow issue. So different areas of expertise in terms of hydrology. And so I'm very grateful for opportunities like that. That's not the only example that I've received since starting in this position, but it's one that I'm very grateful for.
Okay, I'm gonna give you my little speech and then I'll show some pictures at the end here. So as a woman in a predominantly male profession, I have found working in forestry to be challenging and empowering. I couldn't begin to count the times that I have felt way out of my depth, being invited to speak today included. But today's topic, Women of Forestry, is an important one to share. When I was a student at OSU, we visited a Weyerhaeuser logging operation for a harvesting class, and our speaker was Jill Bell. There is nothing cooler than learning about and hearing from accomplished and admirable women, and then getting to know and work with them in your professional career. Forestry is a small community where we are fortunate enough to have this opportunity. And it is a realized dream and a high honor to be working alongside of those I've looked up to. While much of forestry is boiled down to a science, I find that our biggest challenges require more of an interpersonal skill set. Soft skills are described as abilities such as critical thinking, teamwork, communication, and leadership, which aid in how you work and interact with other people. These interpersonal competencies are ranked amongst the most desired skills by a vast majority of employers. While the term soft skill may insinuate that they are easy to master, they are in fact incredibly hard to learn. It is proven to be easier to teach technical or hard skills, and while soft skills can be learned, they are more often seen as personality traits that you either have or you don't. In a 2016 study by Korn Ferry, which is an organizational consulting firm, it showed that women outperformed men in 11 out of 12 emotional competency skills, suggesting that women have the advantage on the soft skill learning curve. If women have a natural disposition and tendency for these skills, then now more than ever do we have something to contribute. Much of what we do in forestry elicits an emotional response from the public, causing scrutiny and political unrest. This challenges our industry to understand opposing views and find common ground, to find what motivates the public and drives their decisions so that we can work together to promote positive change. I truly believe the future of forestry depends on our ability to communicate effectively. The forest industry, just as the rest of the workforce, is seeing a higher value being placed on inclusion, work-life balance, and job satisfaction. It's been inspiring to find that within my own work groups, I have noticed higher numbers of women stepping up to tackle these changes and find ways to advance our industry. Often the groups working towards inclusion, innovation, and overall work culture are comprised of mostly women. I find motivation in the fact that so many of you have the drive and conviction to work towards positive change. We have the opportunity to rewrite what it means to be a forester, and I can't think of anything more exciting than that. I recently graduated from the Real Oregon program, which stands for Resource Education and Agricultural Leadership. During the experience, I was given the opportunity to travel across the state with 22 other individuals in natural resource professions. We toured farms, forests, fisheries, and the state capitol. We learned about business etiquette, professional dress, how to work with the media, communication skills, and so much more. While we all felt like imposters in our business professional attire, we quickly bonded over facing similar challenges in each of our respective industries. Almost every issue focused on environmental challenges and public perspectives. It is programs like this that solidify for me just how important it is to collaborate with people outside of your inner circle and to learn to enhance our soft skill set. So I encourage you to put yourself out there and be a part of the narrative. Step outside of your comfort zone and be willing to grow and learn. Sit on a board or committee, volunteer to hand out seedlings at your local farmers market, speak with your state representative, and learn from those who are finding ways to change and adapt through similar challenges as your own. The forest industry is not a machine with its focus set on destroying our most renewable resource. We are stewards of the forest who care deeply for its sustainability, and we need to utilize our skills to share our story, foster future leaders, and aid in helping our industry grow and evolve. And then I've got some pictures to show you guys. So this one is the Real Oregon group that I was telling you all about. And I'm going to make a little plug here. They have their application currently open. It is a great opportunity to get to meet people outside of just the forest industry and just see exactly how similar a lot of our issues are. And you get to learn great techniques that you can take back with you to your respective fields. I would highly recommend it. So this is myself and an intern that I got to mentor a few years ago. And we're out in this is the nursery fields at the regeneration nursery that I work at. And that's my dog down there with us. So this is a photo from a few years ago of an OSU silviculture class. So we've been able to build that relationship, and now they come out annually to tour the nursery and kind of see what we do and learn a little more about it. And that's where we make our plug to encourage people to apply for jobs in our field, because it is hard to find people who are either interested in it, know about it, and just really want to take the dive, because it is a little outside of the typical forestry field. And then lastly, this is just handing out some seedlings at an event for OFRI and OFIC back a few years pre-COVID. If you ever need seedlings for an event or you want to donate, feel free to come talk to me afterwards or get a card, anything like that. We're happy to promote forestry in any capacity. And there's always seedlings to go around, and they're usually a big hit at a lot of family and ag forestry events, anything like that. So thank you.
So I handle a lot of topics within my role, but I've sort of fallen into, or maybe chosen, somewhat of a focus on management planning. I find myself being really excited about making lists and efficiency and trying to get multiple things done with as little effort as possible. I'm not very good at it. I'm still learning, but I try to think of how I accomplish those things and share those resources with landowners as they're planning what they're going to accomplish for their own lands. And I do a lot of workshops and classes on management planning, what it means to plan for your forest goals. And I get really excited about landowners, like I said earlier, telling me about how it's worked out for them or wanting to share their plans with me. Some of the things I'm really excited about might not be able to help small landowners who I mostly work with right away, but it's been really exciting to watch the technology grow through management planning. Just from being able to see the apps on your cell phone, be able to show you where you are, to thinking about how LiDAR and infrared lasers on drones and are able to create 3D models of your forest as you walk through, and that creating the potential for potentially, as you're walking in the woods, thinking about potential prescriptions and trying them out in real time on a tablet that you're using walking through the woods. And so that ability to be able to plan and change boundaries and streams and roads through that technology in real time as you're walking through the woods just sounds so exciting to me, and something that I'm so excited to share with my landowners when eventually that technology becomes less expensive, because it's getting there. But something else that I'm really excited about is I can say that within our OSU Extension Forestry and Natural Resources team, we've been able to actually see a point where our team is 50% women. We've lost a few women along the way and gained a few men back, but that's okay. But it shows that we're seeing that that equity in gender where we're seeing more women on the team and the ability to work together. And it's been a great opportunity for me because when I came into this position, I came along with 3 other women that were hired at the same time. And there was a great collaborative spirit and an opportunity to work together and mentor each other. And that was really exciting to me. And that really added value to my position because I felt comfortable and welcomed and able to learn and grow through that. I also had the opportunity to be part of lots of organizations, Oregon Women in Timber, as Jill shared earlier, and the Women Owning Woodlands organization that my colleague Tiffany coordinates. And some of my most favorite workshops that I've been able to work with have been Women Owning Woodland programs. And if we could show the picture that I brought, these 2 women are actually in the audience, and Tiffany is wearing her OSU jacket, and Wilda Caffaretta is in the audience too. And this is one of my favorite workshops and one of the first workshops that I put on as an extension agent. It's a management planning workshop. And I'm so excited about management planning and the importance for, in particular, small landowners, because it helps guide you through what you want to do to reach those goals. And it creates a roadmap for you. And so I wanted to get people excited about management planning too. But one of the hardships with management planning, at least with small landowners, is we have a management plan or you hire a consultant to write a management plan for you and it ends up on the shelf and it doesn't always get used, it collects dust. And so we wanted to show how a family uses their management plan in the woods, and we shared this management plan and walked through their property and showed how that management plan guided them through the different decisions that they made on their land. And I felt at the end of the workshop, people were excited and felt a use for that plan. It was such a great experience to be able to share that and feel the excitement from other women and know that the work that I was doing was hopefully making a difference. That's all I got. So I also have some questions planned, but I'd love to be able to offer the opportunity for people to ask from the audience. So if anybody has any questions for us. Yeah. Okay, so the question was, how does someone entering the workforce or with a little bit of volunteer experience learn about symposiums and workshops? Does anybody want to answer that question? Was that question for me? Okay. Okay. If you're asking more specifically for like public opportunities, you would reach out to your OSU Extension Service and get in touch with your, if it was forestry related, get in touch with your local forestry agent. There's one of us in almost every county. And then if it was more professionally oriented, you could be involved with the different professional societies that are related to forestry. So Society of American Foresters, Association of Consulting Foresters, if you wanted to be more in consulting. I'll let you all add the professional societies that are related to your fields too.
Yeah, there's also the Forest Stewards Guild. I'm also a member of them. Yeah. But one comment related to that, just I find so you're connected and plugged in with your professional network, your extension agent. You can get on mailing lists, right? For me, it's the needle and the compass that comes from Brad here. That's how I hear about things. Then through all those other associations, but also just the more you show up and be present, the more you hear about things. So one of my rules is show up everywhere. And you'll find me at landowner meetings. You'll find me at professional meetings. I just try to show up to lectures, to learn. When you show up at learning events, there's people you can talk to and you get connected. It kind of builds over time if you just keep showing up at places. So that's how I have probably more opportunities to come to educational events, lecture series, these kinds of things than I can possibly do, because the list just keeps growing, you know?
Yeah, so obviously, societies are a great way to learn about it. One that I'm involved with that's pretty active locally is Society of Freshwater Science, for anyone that's interested in freshwater stuff. There's a Oregon chapter and a Pacific Northwest chapter, and they're pretty active. You can also check them out on different social media pages as well. And then I don't know, I would just, to give an individual's name, Cheryl Friesen is the science liaison for the U.S. Forest Service, and she is how I learn about a lot of things. So she has a mailing list. And so if you get on the list, like there's a lot of, just relevant forestry science things that get sent around. And then obviously I think anyone putting together a symposium is going to be advertising in all the places they can think of. So yeah, if there are better places to be posting, especially now in this post-COVID or current status of COVID situation, it may be migrating in terms of what's the best way to reach people. So I think that's important. But yeah, I think social media more and more, and also mailing lists.
I would also say that there's a lot of different societies that get talked about. And one thing that's really important that I've learned in my career is to really focus on the small group aspect of it. So it can be easy to pay your dues and be a member of a society. And I know it sometimes costs a little more to be in, say, like a local chapter, but that you get a lot out of those, face-to-face interactions, people in your area. It just gives you a small town vibe for this large professional society that you're a part of. And then I would definitely just make sure you foster the relationships that you have made throughout the years. I have gotten some of my greatest opportunities post-college from people that I knew in college, or advisors in college, teachers, whatever it was. And so just because you've moved on from a chapter of your life doesn't mean that there's not still opportunities lingering kind of in those groups as well. So that's how I found out about the Real Oregon program, was from a forestry club advisor at OSU. And I've been graduated for almost 6 years now. So anyway.
Any other questions? Okay, the question was, could each of us share the best day on our job? And I'm going to ask our panel if they'd like to go first. Anybody?
Well, I'll say that for me, a great day. Today's a great day because I'm here with all of you. So I do a lot of forest management planning too. And for me, a great day is when I get to go sort of full cycle on something. So like Lauren said, it would be really disappointing to me if my landowner that I worked with put the plan on the shelf and didn't do anything with it. So it's most rewarding for me when I've helped them through that planning process, but then get to see those activities through to completion. I mean, I'm truly a silviculturist at heart, and I like to help people through the process, but I really want to see that stuff tried out on the ground. Don't put that thing on a shelf, friends. Use that and get creative. And it's that whole series of, a sort of like, you're rewarded for the planning, and then you're seeing things happening, you're getting feedback. Oh gosh, I love the days when my data came in on my seedlings, and it was like a chance to like go back and learn from the experience. So unless you get to go through that whole process, you don't have that day. So like the day I did the planting on that restoration project, just felt really fulfilling because it's seeing the whole thing through.
So as an ecologist, of course, I got into the field because I love being in the field and being in streams, working in streams. However, as I've gotten to where I'm at in my career, I don't get to do that as much as I like. So now when I do go in the field, it tends to be more for site selection. It's very early stages of the project. So for example, we were trying to identify sites for our riparian buffer project. A big part of what we did is that just because it says that a stream has fish on the map does not mean that it in fact does. So we go through the painstaking process of identifying, places that are likely to be good candidates for a study because they're going to have to be cut in the next 2 years or within that harvest plan window. And so we hike in, and it's a pretty severe hike in, dropping into a watershed in these really steep drainages. So any day that we hiked in and there were actually fish and we actually liked the site and it was going to work for the study and we were able to successfully crawl out of there, that is always a good day for me. But yeah, no, just more time in the field. Absolutely.
I'm going to give you a bit of a cliche answer here. I would say that many of my days feel just really fulfilling. I remember telling my manager, who is, he's the only manager I've really ever had, when I was hired, that the most important thing to me and the thing that I valued most was my happiness day to day at my job, and that everything else was kind of just the noise of it all. And I wouldn't still be there if I really didn't enjoy my day to day. One of the great things about regeneration is that we're super seasonal. And so, I mean, I could be doing a project for one whole week and then I don't touch it again for a year. So it's always something different. I really value getting to take a year to sit on the results and the impact and then reformulate and regroup for the next time around. And yeah, I really can't think of one specific day. I really just have enjoyed all of the work I've been able to accomplish.
I guess in that similar vein, I had somebody interested in becoming an extension agent and asking me what that meant to me and what it involved. And they were interviewing for a job and wanted to know more about it and see if it was a good fit for them. And I was explaining my job and where I work in my team. And the first thing their response was, oh my gosh, I can see how much you love your job and where you work. And I can imagine having something that I really enjoy. So that was a pretty good day to realize, wow, I'm in the right place for me. If someone else can read it from my description of what I do, then I know that I love it. But right up there with that would probably be the day that I found my first giant Pacific salamander. Okay, well, I'll ask the last question, I guess. And the last question is, what's inspired you to be a leader? I'm gonna go first. We'll go back.
So for me, my inspiration is less work related and more family related. My mom has a PhD in clinical psychology and was a single mother until I was 10. And so there was never really a day in my life, especially my childhood, where I didn't think that men and women weren't equal. My mom just kind of always set the example for me. And so I really attribute that to just her paving the way for me to, I don't know, I never really had a different mindset. I mean, I've gotten to pull back my naivety, whatever you call it, once I've gotten into the workforce and you see a little bit more, but she really has inspired me to face those challenges head on and do what you're passionate about, even if it's difficult at times. And then I also really have valued how she has shown me how important it is to show children that women are driven and powerful, and that it doesn't take away from their ability to be loving and caring mothers, friends, partners, that sort of thing. So I've really appreciated that in my life. And yeah, she's been a great role model to me, at least in my 27 years of being alive.
Oh, you got that. Yeah, I think for me, in terms of being a leader, at least in my field, it's that I worked a lot of jobs after my undergrad degree. And so I worked at a variety of levels, and I didn't know I wanted to be I didn't know I wanted a PhD. I knew that I wanted to be in science. I knew that I wanted some autonomy. I knew I wanted to ask important questions, and I wanted to be involved in the whole process. And it's only after working that you realize that there's a ceiling to what you can accomplish at each stage. And so eventually I went back for my master's, and then I worked again, and then I went back for my PhD. And then, and that was really necessary for me to have autonomy over addressing the important questions that I wanted to address. And also, to fund the research questions that I think are important, and to work on the specific topics that I think are interesting, which is specifically protecting freshwater resources and thinking about how different land uses are affecting various components of our streams. And so, so for me, it was more of a trial and error, and yes, needed to pursue what I wanted to do.
Yeah, the word leader, as a kid, my mom will say in kindergarten, I was president of the boys club. So people, and then there were several children at my house. I'm one of 5, and there were 2 other being cared for, and I led little groups of people around and led the activities. So from a young age, I thought of myself as a leader, and I think people saw me that way. As I've gotten older, I question that, because I haven't been that sort of front of the room leader, but I went through a leadership course called Spiral Leadership, sort of feminine inspired leadership. But in that, they talked about a concept of like front of the room leader versus leading by example. So you may not be a leader standing at the front of the room, but you can still be a leader. And I think part of that's like leading yourself, leading yourself by being true to who you are and your passions, your interests, your needs and desires. And so I think that it's sort of this internal drive that inspires me to be a leader. Plus, I feel like I've been given so much. Some of the other panels talked about mentors, and really I don't stand here on my own, and I didn't accomplish without the connectivity of everyone who has invested in me and has given me advice and who has encouraged me along the way. So I think part of the inspiration is sort of to give back. It's like I would like to give back by paying it forward in a way. So that definitely motivates me. And yeah, I mean, it's like not just the what, but the who inspires me. I've had, as I've gone along, there's just been these key moments. I look back and I'm still connected with a lot of these folks who, many women, but also a good deal of men who at the right moment gave me that opportunity. Typically in an informational interview, just sitting there, that's how I got here today. It's all just one conversation after another. And all that those people do in their work is sort of is inspirational to me in becoming, more myself, more of a leader and a steward in this industry. So.
And then, so I didn't expect myself to be a leader. I had as was mentioned earlier in an earlier panel, I had a bad case of imposter syndrome. I always remember I was sitting in my 7th grade science class, and it was my teacher's style to ask questions out of what was the homework. And I did my homework. I was a good student, actually. I did my homework and I knew the answer, but I wasn't the type of person to be confident in myself enough to say what that was. So I got called on that day, and I stared at my teacher with a blank face because I was nervous I might get the answer wrong, even though I knew what it was. And he said to the class, "Well, that's what happens when you don't do your homework," and moved on and assumed from me, that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And so I went through most of my life thinking I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't know what I'm doing. And so that was a really difficult thing for me to overcome. But I started realizing as I got into college that people were choosing me to be a leader and putting me or telling me voting for me to do things that I was surprised for. And so I started realizing, hey, I have something to offer. And then I got into a position where I started seeing a lot of women who I really looked up to and who showed me that they had confidence and that they could be a leader in different ways, not always in the traditional way, but sometimes in the traditional ways and then sometimes in other ways. And that made me feel like I needed to also, show that I had that confidence and put myself out there and be able to lead in the best way that I could that would support the people that I wanted to support. And so being able to look up to others inspired me to be able to do that for other people. And also within my job, I really love the opportunity to be able to empower people, to be able to make them feel good about themselves and make the decisions that they want to make for whatever their goals are in managing their land and being there for other people involved in forestry, however they are. So I've been doing a lot more education on leadership and how to be a good leader for other people and to give back. It's a good thing to say. So that concludes our panel. I want to thank our panelists so much for being up here and sharing their stories, and all of you who've shared your stories already, and those who came to listen. And I hope we can learn some of your stories as we talk through lunch. Thank you.